many of you do yoga here? Okay. What a beautiful place. It has such a feeling. It has a feeling of home, you know? Why did you come tonight? What are you feeling? There's a kind of hell that's described in Buddhism called revive, where they basically, take you almost to death, and then they bring you back, and then they do it again. We've been guilty of this in this country, doing this to people. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that part of the healing from this will be the recognition that we are participating in it. And it's a tough thing to say. It's a tough thing as a Buddhist teacher to teach personal responsibility. But I feel so strongly that it's the most compassionate thing I could teach you, because it's the beginning of the way out. Because if we're participating unconsciously or unknowingly in things that are causing suffering, it just makes sense that that's going to come back to us. What goes around comes around. We know this from the time we're children. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and the principle of it is because they will treat you in kind. It's inevitable. What you put out, you will get back. We have to be grown up if we're going to be on any kind of a real path. We have to be sophisticated in our thinking, and we have to be grown up. We have to acknowledge that we are members of the human race, and we're subject to the same flaws, and that just because we happen to have incredible advantages in this country, and there was a moment in time here in Massachusetts where there came together some of the most extraordinary minds that have ever been on the planet, and they thought, this is our chance. This may be our one chance to create a situation that will allow for human happiness in the future and for human freedom. And yet, I think the way things have unfolded is a little different from what they had envisioned. They tried very hard to protect us. You want to introduce me? Please introduce me, Judith. Because I don't know who I am.
My notes for introducing this wonderful speaker. So this is LindCrouse, and some of you, maybe all of you, know her because she's an actor, and she's an Academy Award nominated actor. She hates when I say that. But I bring it up for a reason, because she has lived a life that some of us only know about when we see it on TV. And you go to the Academy Awards. We used to have Academy Award parties when I was a kid. We fix special food and stay up all night. But Lindsay lived a particular kind of life that we hear about, right? And something shifted in her life so that she's come to value something else in life. She began studying Buddhism almost 15 years ago, is that right? About 13 years ago? And her teacher is Venerable Samadhi Marut, who is an American Tibetan Buddhist monk. And she studied with him very, very closely. And she's taken and completed 18 foundational courses and 18 advanced courses. It takes years to accomplish what she's accomplished. And now she teaches Buddhism in addition to her acting life. In fact, her life in Buddhism is taken over, right? Is that right? And she spends more time teaching Buddhism than she does almost anything else, except being a family person and a friend and a glorious community member. So I am one of Lindsay's students. A few of us here are Cheryl, and Anita, and Liz are Lindsay's students, and we study Buddhism with her. I can say about Lindsay, I can say this honestly, that she has practiced, intentionally, mindfully practiced generosity, so that she is now among the most, if not the most generous person I know in my life. Of all the people I know, of all of my, think about that. Think about all of the people you know, and you can say they are the most anything. So she's generous with her time and her loving spirit and the teachings of Buddhism. What I love about Lindsay is that she takes the teachings of Buddhism and she's not trying to create little Buddhists all over the world. She's trying to help people learn to be happy in whatever way they can be, and to teach people how to be happy. And that's what she's here to teach tonight.
Thank you. That's beautiful, Judith. Thank you. How can we not understand that we are more than meets the eye when the spring comes? It's in front of our faces every year. How we can look at the landscape in the middle of winter, here especially, and think, of course, it's all over. It's all over. It's done. The trees are dead. The ground is so hard. And then it softens and it's boggy like this, and it's misty and it's wet, and it's just like birth, It's just like the atmosphere around a birth. And everything just comes up looking like it was new, just totally new, so fresh, that beautiful yellow-green color. And last night I went to bed, there were no little buds that I could see on my trees. This morning there was like a haze of green because they were all starting to open. It was it's miraculous. It's miraculous what's around us, and we are part of it. They say that in Buddhism they say, if you can understand that you are being taught all the time, that there are things to learn all the time, that you don't need to go get a self-help book or whatever. The agenda is presented to you for what you have to do every day by the world. If you could hold it that way, you wouldn't be so afraid. You wouldn't be so afraid if you could think of it as a more benevolent situation that you're in. They say even if your teacher does something that you feel is so strange or uncharacteristic or incomprehensible, they say if you can learn from it, your teacher is still teaching you. Just like there are people who have parents that showed them how not to live. It was just as useful if they could hold it in a certain way. We get born into a very specific context. We're cast in a very specific play when we're born. There's a cast of characters around us. There are circumstances. There's a time period that we're born into, and a place, a culture. And we are carrying with us all of that. Our parents, our ancestry, their prejudices, their likes and dislikes. And so we have a particular set of glasses on that we see the world out of, and nobody else has our glasses. So in spite of the fact that we tend to hold the world as a kind of standard issue situation, almost like a movie set, that we get up and we open the door and we step out on the movie set of the world couldn't possibly exist that way, because there's not a single objective mind on the planet that would establish what that was like, and whether we're interpreting it correctly, or, well, we shouldn't feel so vulnerable because it's really this way, or we shouldn't get mad at this person because it's really that way. There is no that way. And we say there's this, families get into such upheavals over holidays like Christmas, but there's no Christmas that everybody had that they can refer to. Well, you didn't respect Christmas, or you were such a jerk at Christmas, or whatever. There's no Christmas that ought to have been a certain way that everybody could agree on, anywhere. And if you just think about that small situation, it's almost uncanny that we can function at all. Because it's as if we're all playing a board game and we're inviting everybody in every day to play with us. We haven't told them the rules. We haven't told them what the board looks like. We haven't told them anything, basically. And we're expecting to relate. And maybe I see myself as, Baroque. and you see yourself as Italian Baroque, you see yourself as Danish modern. And we don't know this about each other, right? We've got Bach talking to Stravinsky. We've got, right? We've got Picasso talking to Giotto. And we're expecting everybody to just, it all to run so smoothly. We can be that different. But we're not separate. We're not separate. I know this from doing theater all over the world, that you can even be speaking a different language. And there come to be a point in a play, and anyone who's ever been in the theater and loved the theater or seen the theater knows that silence that happens when the truth is in the room and the actor is bringing their life to bear. And there's true vulnerability and openness, and something happens in the room, and everybody's there all together. And it's just worth the price of admission. And it isn't that something gets solved either. It's just everybody's mask is down. And it doesn't matter what restaurant you ate at or what clothes you wear, how much money you have. There's no distinctions in that moment. We're a human family and we're one thing. And we're all asking the big questions in the same room. And there's something extremely healing about that. Very healing about that. And I think often in the great experiences in the theater, you know, I grew up in New York, and you go out afterwards or you get in bed with your husband that night and you say something that you haven't said before because you saw someone do something and you feel identified with them on the stage, and you say, because they did this, I want to do this. And you just suddenly announce yourself in a new way. And that's opening a life to a new possibility. And that is always possible between us and among us. Always, all the time. They say that every moment that we're given is fresh. It's we who drag in the past and we reanimate it, and it walks around like Frankenstein once again. You know, if you have a relative in your family that you seriously disliked and they looked a particular way, and you go to interview for a job and someone walks in and they happen to resemble, you know, Aunt so-and-so or Uncle so-and-so, that person doesn't stand a chance with you. You're not really available to who they are. And they're a very different human being, perhaps, than the person who, you know, held you back when you were 9 years old or whatever. We don't allow for a moment to be like the spring, where this thing is coming up new in front of our eyes. And something could grow and develop out of there rather than resembling yesterday or 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago. And this is part of what we call depression, is that we just keep feeling like we call it being stuck, but in fact, it's constantly being created. They call it elaborating in Buddhism. It's like, you know, the mud in the swamps is going blub, 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 and suddenly there's an island, you know. We just keep going blub, 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 and there's the same old in front of us. And we feel like we're stuck. We feel like we're in stasis. It's just we're singing the same refrain over and over and over again. So it requires tremendous courage to break the cycle. And these moments that we're in, like the one we're in right now, are moments of extraordinary possibility because they wake us up. They wake us up to the fact that we could die in any moment, which is a good thing to be woken up to. Because you'll get rid of the dross, you know, the person you're planning to have the argument with tomorrow. Maybe you'll call them up and say, you know, could we sit down and have coffee instead? I'm exhausted. And I realize, you know, the world is in pain. Could we just go have, and let's have some bloody coffee cake with it, you know. Let's have a sweet talk rather than get into it with each other. Any moment that you do something like that, they say that will bring extraordinary karma, extraordinary good fortune. May not come right away. Karma is simply another way to say that this is a caused universe. It's not random. You can't have a universe that's random and caused. You can't. No self-respecting scientist across the world would say that. You can walk into Grand Central Station and say, oh my God, this looks like a random mess, but everybody is actually quite organized, going where they need to go. And our lives are a little bit like that. When we look out on the world, it's like that. Everybody's going someplace. But it just looks like we're all bumping into each other on the movie set. We are interacting with everything all the time. We are not separate. We are not separate at all. As a matter of fact, there's a great Buddhist saint, Master Shantideva, who teaches about this, I think, more eloquently than anyone that I've heard, who says, you know, yes, we appear to be separate beings. If one of you is stabbed with a knife and is bleeding, I can't say that I hurt in exactly that way. He says, let's not be naive. But he says, what I can do is I can draw a line around your back, and I can declare that your suffering is as important as mine. That's an incredible participation with the world. If you just did that, even in the smallest ways after you leave this class, you will start to have a happier life. What I'm learning is there is no life, there is no spiritual path, there is no happiness without relaxation first. Numero uno. We think of it as selfishness or as death. The more egotistical way of thinking about it really is, it's death. It's death. We're not being productive. We're not being successful. What will people say if they find us taking a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? You know, what if that's what we start to represent? What if we have our feet up when people come for dinner? Say, you know what? I haven't started dinner. Sit down. Let's do this together. Sit down. You know, put your feet up. Let's let's have some lemonade and talk. What the heck do we want to make tonight for dinner? You know, whatever. Just it goes differently, and it goes more slowly, more sweetly, more inclusively. You're available. The dinner is not as important as your availability to the person walking in the door. How are you really? You know, so it's not all about, I'm about to get the dinner done, and I'm getting the dinner done, I've gotten the dinner done. Ah, thank God, we got dinner done. And we just missed it with each other. We've missed it with each other, just from the busyness of the day. You know, Stanislavski used to say to his actors, cut 90%. Be present. Be present. It's very hard to do anywhere, really hard to do on stage. But you know, I used to start every year, I used to teach at USC Graduate Film School, and I'd start every year my class for my directors, which was called Take No Prisoners. I used to say, I'm going to get you before you get me. I used to say to them, they'd all be trying to sit in the last row, because the directors are always trying to hide. And I'd say, do any of you think that acting is a leadership profession? And in 7, 8 years, I never got a yes. Not a clean yes. And then I would say, okay, could I have someone up in this chair? And I'd have a chair in front of me and nobody would move. I'd say, just come up and sit in the chair. I'm not going to ask you to do anything, just come up and sit in the chair. And nobody would move. I said, well, let me pose that question again. People are looking at us all the time, all day long. But when you come up on stage and sit in a chair, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And it never gets less terrifying, ever. You just learn how to decide how important it is. You learn to speak for someone who can't get up in a chair and do what you're going to do. You learn to do it for someone else. And then it's not so hard. But just to be available just to be seen through, just to be there. That's what people are coming to dinner for. It doesn't matter if you burnt the whole thing. The place to start to work is right here. You know, in the 60s, if you had a table and a telephone and a chair, you could do anything, because we didn't have this sort of tamped down effect. You have to have a corporation, or you have to have a lot of money, or you have to, you know, have a name, or you have to be branded. You can start with a telephone and a chair. And that's how everything has started. And before the telephone, just you, the human voice, you know. You can start. Whatever it is you want to do. This is what I mean when I'm saying we are capable of so much more. And these moments in time that wake us up and you know, make us huddle together and make us ask the big questions and make us say, how could someone do that? Well, I mean, I truly believe we haven't been in any other circumstances than the circumstances that we've been in. Our knowledge of life is very, very limited. Who knows who we would be if we had less money, if we had fewer support systems, if we had very screwed up teachings when we were young, if our only way to be qualified, you know, for manhood would be to kill somebody, to knock somebody off. You know, we could grow up that way, and then God help us. Then we're that person that someone says, who is this monster? We could be that person. You know, they say in Buddhism, we're never far from that. We're never far from that. And we shouldn't think of ourselves that way, because it's a kind of pride that just isn't useful. It isn't useful to feel a sense of superiority to those that are in such trouble. And to have great compassion to those that have hurt people on such a scale, because it isn't going to go well for them. We don't have to worry about a certain kind of justice. You know, what we give out comes back to us, and it's just a law of the universe. It's a law of the universe. And the problem with the law of karma is that any cause and effect requires time. There's cause, and then there's time, and then there's the effect. And karma is an extremely subtle situation, and we don't know when something's going to come back to us, or how it's going to, they say, flower. We do know that you can't change the present in the present. If you rear-end somebody's car, you can't just close your eyes and wish, you know, for you to be several yards back all of a sudden. Yeah, yeah. But what you can do in that moment is you can garden for the future. You can sow different seeds for the future, and you can say the thing that they say in all the pamphlets not to say. Are you all right? Right? And be there in your full humanity. Taking the responsibility, whatever responsibility you need to take. And heck with the money. Do you know what I'm saying? There's something so important there. There's your whole future right there in that moment. Really. You know, because things aren't working the way we think they are. There's a wonderful exercise that my teacher's teacher did one night with us in a class where he said, you know, I'm person A and you're person B, and I've come from another planet, and I've been here with my you know, contingent, and we've been taking a look at your way of life and comparing notes. And we're about to go home, but we have just one question we'd like to ask you. We're a little confused. We noticed that you had aspirin in your medicine cabinet, and one night you had a headache, and you took the aspirin, and you explained to us this is medicine, and this medicine cures a headache, but you continued to have the headache. And the next day you still had the headache. As a matter of fact, the headache got worse, and you still were taking the aspirin. And we just wanted to know what you meant by medicine. You said it cures, this medicine cures your headache, and it says it has an active ingredient. Could you explain to us what is the active ingredient and why did it not work? Because if it doesn't work half the time, we don't understand why they shouldn't charge you half as much for the bottle of aspirin. And in fact, you said sometimes you take a different medicine. I think it was called Excedrin. You take Excedrin sometimes. You say sometimes that works for a headache. But we're confused. See, it's right in front of our nose. Medicine does not work that way. Aspirin doesn't cure a headache. We know this. You could take aspirin, it could stop the headache. You could take aspirin, it could not stop the headache. You could not take aspirin and get a headache. You could not take aspirin and not have a headache. It's proof, very simple. The aspirin does not have an active ingredient that is working that way. You could go through the entire jar of aspirin, it could never help your headache. Then you move to Excedrin. Same diff, as we used to say in school. It's very interesting. So why does it sometimes appear to work? And in Buddhism they say, Buddha said, it works because you took care of other people's bodies. Then if you go to the doctor will be able to help you. If you take the medicine will be able to help you. Because you put into play the real cause for being healed. You were healing others. And it's going to come back to you in the form of healing. Now, it's not instant, and it requires a lifetime of consciously helping other people to feel better, physically. And a lot of the time, we haven't been doing that, or we've been withholding that kind of help. Right? So we can get the opposite effect, which is that the aspirin doesn't work. So with money, we have this ethic in this country that hard work produces wealth. Well, does hard work produce wealth? We don't have to think about it for 10 seconds, because the people working hardest on this planet are making the least money. Rice farming, I think, is like, it's the job that the most people on the planet hold. Those people work harder than probably we've ever worked. I mean, that's slave labor. Bending over and pulling things out of the muck. That's really hard work. Maybe $1 a day? Hard work could not produce wealth. Could not, or we would know it by now. Playing the stock market, does that produce wealth? We would know it by now in this country. Same thing as the aspirin. You can play the stock market, get rich, you can play the stock market and lose your shirt. We say, well, it depends on the stock, you just have to have a good stockbroker. There are plenty of people who have good stockbrokers, really good stockbrokers. Same thing. Well, it depends on the condition of the market. But all of these things you see are answering how, not why. Well, why is the stock market in this condition today when I need to buy stocks? It's like the way children ask, well, why? And we can ask why all the way down until we get into the rabbit hole and on down further. Because that question is not answerable that way. We can hide our money under the bed. Some people get very rich that way. Some people lose their money. The house falls down. The house burns down. And the cash is behind the light switch. And there it goes, up in smoke. It's not a guarantee. We're relying upon things to work in a certain way. And they don't work that way. And everybody is turning on a light in the morning and putting their foot out of their side of the bed because they want to be happy, and they're relying upon everything to work so that they can be. Generosity is the one thing that produces wealth. It produces abundance. And here's the way you think about it. If I give you $100, on a secular plane, I have lost $100. I am without $100. It is hard to give that. And you have gained $100. I'm poorer and you're richer. And somewhere inside me, I kind of think now you're a little bit in debt to me in some way. And I'm kind of planning on how that should show up in the future. as a return gesture, right? This is really, we get into this all the time, right? We think it's just natural. It's a recipe for disaster, okay? On a spiritual plane, if I give you $100, the moment that that $100 passes from my hand to yours, I am richer. Because interdependent with giving is having. I couldn't give it if I didn't have it. I am richer before I give the $100. Because I'm about to give the $100. I become richer before the $100 goes over to you. St. Paul says, you're just sending it on ahead. They're just holding it for you. They're just holding it for you. They say a yogi can relax if they understand these principles, and they're very elegant principles, and they can be learned and studied. They aren't instantly available to us because we've been operating out of another system, out of the system of, well, I gotta hold this much for me. I can't, I can't like give the farm. And you shouldn't give the farm. I mean, you gotta use your head. You shouldn't give the farm. But the next time you see someone with their hand out, before you say, well, they're probably going to use it for alcohol, unless you see them walking into the liquor store, asking for it or whatever, think to yourself, I don't know who this person is, but this opportunity can represent anything because it's a fresh moment. I don't have to drag yesterday's thinking into this. And this is an opportunity to exercise the arm of generosity. It's creaky. It's a little creaky, I might be able to become a little bit more flexible. And those beautiful Eastern figures that have all the arms? That's what this is. Maybe by the time I give, maybe another arm will show up because there's somebody over here. And while I'm giving over there, then I can give over here. And you grow the capacity to give. It's beautiful. And then you've got to trust. And then you've got to trust. You've got to trust your own good intelligence that every spiritual leader that walks the planet has said this. What you reap, you sow. What you sow, you reap. They also said this amazing thing, which is that good actions produce good results. Bad actions produce bad results. It's like kindergarten. It's like 101. But it's true. And thank God it's simple. Do unto others is very sophisticated. It's so sophisticated, nobody can do it. It's a very sophisticated little phrase. If we could actually live that way, we would solve every problem on the planet. Because somebody would be taking care of somebody else all the time. Somebody would be taking care of somebody else all the time. It would just be... I always think to myself, when I'm in Los Angeles in the traffic, I think, when the light turns green, if everybody put their foot on the gas at the same moment, you wouldn't have that drag where you're 20 cars behind and then you get up and then you got to go through the light again. And we just all got to put our foot on the gas at the same moment. And it's a little bit like doing that. The more people that are hooked up to the system, when one says go, the others say go. There's an incredible scientist who lived not so long ago, Niels Bohr, who was a Dane who won the Nobel Prize. One of the things he won it for was his work with particles. That he discovered that when a particle interacts with another particle, even if they move to different galaxies, then when you do something to one particle, it happens simultaneously to the other particle. This is an amazing, these are miraculous insights in our lifetime. And we have to take note of them. Nothing that you do is going to go just kind of like as an isolated incident of goodness that really, well, I just lost $100. What the hell did I do that for? Things don't work that way. You are changed if you give with that attitude. You are changed. You aren't the same person on the other side. You just say, you just said to yourself, I reinvested. I reinvested. I can be calm. right? I don't have to worry about which stock. I don't have to worry about whether I hide the money in the light switch. I reinvested something, and it has a guarantee. It has a real guarantee, and it does. And then you have to let go of saying, yeah, but I got to get that $100 back. I didn't get it this week. As a matter of fact, I kind of lost some money this week. Just be calm. Just be calm then. You have done the right thing. And when people do the right thing, it has an environmental effect. Character is very interesting as an actor. There is no such thing as character. There's no such thing as a character, and there's no such thing as character. What happens in the theater, I go on stage, it's in the program that I'm Ophelia. And then anything I do, it's an agreement between me and the audience that those are the actions of Ophelia. The framework of the play is really not where I am operating. I have made a decision about what the playwright is saying. The play is, what they say in Buddhism, empty. No word has any meaning. No word has any particular inherent meaning. The word rock, if I say it in France, people go, right? It doesn't have any inherent hardness about it. It doesn't have any quality about anything that it's pointing to. It's a referent for people who speak English. It doesn't have any meaning. I can say to Judith, Judith, you're a jerk. Or I can say, Judith, you're a jerk. Same words, totally different intention. Totally different intention. So language can only have an effect for us by what we're using it for. Mm-hmm. It's just decibels. It's just sounds. But what we're using it for is the real language. We have the common language of aggression and of gentleness and of love. We know the actions that we're performing through the language. And that's what's really speaking in any given piece of theater, or literature for that matter.
Lindsay, don't you find that with all the emphasis on texting and email, I found it in my own life that my words via email have been misinterpreted because there's no smile in my voice.
That's right.
There's no, nuance of expression on my face or my eyes. They can't see that. They're just reading what I'm saying in one way and it's being misinterpreted.
Yeah, this is why they always throw the playwright off the set. Because the playwright thinks it has a certain meaning and the actor's like doing this great job. But it's not how the playwright envisioned it. They were saying, you just go get a drink across the street and we'll be finished rehearsal in a minute.
But we're not talking face to face as much. I guess that's the bottom line of what
We are not. We are not. We're not talking face to face. We're not concentrating on one thing and then another thing. We are in the midst of the most horrendous simultaneity of expression. We are jangled. We can't meditate. We can't think for ourselves, really, because we don't even know what we think. We're selecting out for attention deficit because we're like little, butterflies. And we constantly have this anxiety that we're not getting anything done. We have, my mother used to say to me, I don't care what you can put in your phone. You're not going to have any more friends than I had in my little handwritten address book. You've got contacts. That's what it says. You've got contacts. She says, you don't know those people. Those people aren't, helping your kids do their homework, yeah. I mean, we don't guard our speech. That's what I mean by television. They have to keep talking. It's a nightmare. Talking to people who just lost their children saying, yeah, but what was it really like? Mm-hmm. Because the conversation never should have happened, and at least it should have been over in a few seconds. But it isn't the commercial break yet. Oh, I mean, it's just, if you really look at the interviews, are just, they're appalling., 'Appalling. 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 to be asking me this as if you didn't know? Like, what am I going to say that you've never heard before? Oh my God. You know, what is information for? We're not selecting. Yeah, Wikipedia, I've always had this debate with people. You don't know who's making the definitions. I'm going back to the Oxford English Dictionary. A man spent his life creating that dictionary. What do we rely on for our understanding of who we are and what we're doing here? We really can simplify. I learned this taking care of my mother. I learned this. She taught me this. It's like the greatest lesson at the end of her life. I learned to relax. I learned to say, it doesn't matter if I'm stuck in the ICU for an entire summer. Let me just be present because I am here. Let me just be present here. Just be quiet. Just shut up. See what I can do to help. And it's given me... There's a process of becoming an enlightened being. And there's a transformation to become an enlightened being. And they say the way to do it, they say this is how you can hold the world as totally magical, is that you could be, because things are empty of being one thing or another. Nothing is fixed. We are all changing things. We're changing a mile a minute. Because nothing is fixed, you can't say who someone is, really. We're living in this sort of chatterbox realm, and we're not living in any kind of depth with each other. Any kind of what's real with each other. In a way that if we were to be conscious that we were dying, would we be able to say, you know, let me let go, because I did what I could. I really did what I could. And I'm okay. I'm okay. And you just have to do it all by yourself and then trust. Karma grows. You'll see it play out. And then just look. Just notice. But don't demand. You know, they say God will not be denied. You know, the fact that we pray, oh, can I please have a Lexus? Can I please have a Lexus? You know, it's like, God is like, going, I'm not sure if you can have a Lexus, actually, you know. But we're so naive. We kind of have such a childlike relationship to what is holy, most of the time. We have to be grown up about it. You know? Because we're imprisoned in, I think that a Lexus is going to make me happy. A Lexus is going to break down. You know, it'll be 3 days in, you'll think, I thought this was a much more comfortable seat. You know, actually it's giving me a back problem. I'm going to have to get a thing, you know. It's going to fall apart pretty quickly, like everything does. Our happiness doesn't come from outside of us. Never has, and it never will. Remember that karma's like incoming missiles. You can't change the present in the present. Something happens, it can look like a car crash, it can look like a car crash with a human being that you didn't feel you caused. Well, I was just going along and you stopped. You know, well, I was just going along telling you your hair looked nice and you just went off on me. Same kind of incident. So you planted a seed for something sweet by saying something sweet. And an incoming came. Right? And it exploded right in your face there. The two things did not have anything to do with each other. You saying the kind remark did not result in the lousy thing happening to you in the next moment. Karma doesn't work that fast unless you're an extremely high practitioner. You can pretty much guarantee that they are two different things. So when that happens, and it can happen almost every day and to a certain extent, see if you can just stop for a split second. And before you react, notice the other person. Just notice the other person. How do they look? How are they feeling? And deal with them as if you arrived on the scene right then, with a person who's having a hard time. Forget about the moment before. That's going to have a result later. You planted it, you did a great job. Now forget about it and arrive on the scene of the accident and say, what can I do for you? What can I do for you right now? Oh my God, you know, I'm so sorry. You seem so tired. But if you ask yourself, how am I feeling? Because you're going to say to yourself, this person is making me feel this way. Well, that's not exactly what's happening. But ask yourself, how am I feeling? You say, I feel completely wiped off the map. I feel disappeared. I feel humiliated. I feel dominated, whatever the thing is. And you say, and what does it seem that they're doing to me? You know, they're stopping me in my tracks. They're shouting me down. They're sticking it to me. Whatever. Good English. Good juicy English. And you go in your room later on and you write down dominating, sticking it to someone. Okay? And you just watch in the next few days any way, shape, or form in which you either are doing this in the present, in your life, you're interrupting people, you're telling them what's what when you don't need to, you're not being patient, and you're saying you always and you never, and making accusations, these kinds of things. You know, jumping on people. Or, you know, just spend, you know, you're having a cup of tea and just think, when in the past have I dominated someone? And the first thing will be, I never dominate people. I don't dominate people. I'm not the person who dominates people. Right? Think small. Think small. Because it may be something that you're not aware of, and that as you become conscious of it, you put it in a little book and you just say, I'm going to now do my work. Because if this is coming from me, I want to stop it. And then comes the hard work of being honest with yourself. It's worth everything that you can put into it. It's worth everything. It's worth your life to be honest with yourself, to look at yourself. Because there's no such thing as a hardwired bad person either. Constantly changing. It's we who say we're a bad person or we've failed. You know, just intelligent regret and then move on. Begin to gouge into making your new, beautiful life. Just let the past go. It's gone already. It's gone before you can think about it. Let it go. If you need to do something to make up for something, you do it. Okay? They say that your thoughts are energy that run in your body. You know, evil, they say, is energy that needs to be given up to God. It needs to be transmuted. But it's just energy. You say energy doesn't have any quality of good or bad, it's just energy. And underneath the qualities that we ascribe to things is this divine energy that can be changed. Right? Because if someone doesn't get in your face, you're not going to change. You know, if someone doesn't destroy your life, you're not going to create a new one. The way we bring things into being is by labeling them. If they aren't labeled, we don't know what they are. They aren't knowable to us. So we bring things into being by speaking them, by saying them, and then suddenly they're there. But you can say to someone, you can use logic. I love Buddhism because it's based on logic. They will take you through reasoning because they don't want you just sort of to say, oh, I believe that, and then get 50 years down the pike and fall apart. They want you to use your head. Buddha said, you know, don't come around here as a groupie, I don't want you, because you'll just go off with the next guy. I want you to test this yourself. You are a changing thing. You are in a fresh moment of time. You are now consciously cleaning up your life. Alleluia. This is, you start rejoicing, girl, and let's see if we can let the old definitions go, the old assumptions go. Because by just the fact that you are here doing this, you are not that person that you say you were. They're a changing thing. That nothing is fixed. No label that they can put on themselves are they ever going to be. They remind them, what were they like when they were even 5 years ago? You know, would they pick out the same clothes? Would they go out with the same guy? Would they, you know? It's all different. And you can let it go. It can go. This will not always be who you think you are. And be very compassionate over that. You know, they say that judgment is more difficult than punishment. Because by punishing yourself, you assuage a little bit of the guilt. It's a little bit of a payout. Because it feels like free fall. It feels like the ground just opened up underneath you. and you're very unsure. But guys, we're standing on a star in the middle of space going, should I have my money in this bank or should I, I mean, we have to get a grip. I truly want to thank you for the great privilege of teaching you. Really thank you. Thank you for letting me come and be here with you.
I hope you'll come again.
Oh, thank you. I would love to. I will. Yeah, careful what you wish for, right? Careful what you wish for. Man, I got 2 cameras and everything.
Yeah,
Whoa, Jay.
makes it more complicated,
We're really.
you know me.
So I just want to thank you for letting me be here tonight, and I plan to come back.
Wonderful. Well, it's very nice to have you here.
Thank you.
It's nice to spend an evening and a couple hours with gentle people, and the calmness that came over the room, I think, when you were speaking was, I felt that, and so I was very touched by that. And so I left the corporate world. I had a 25-year career in the corporate world, and this is our 3rd year owning Roots to Wings. So we have 4 kids under the age of 12, and so we just kind of jumped off the cliff to do yoga and healing. And so I want to spend the rest of my time with the gentlest, warmest people that I can find, selfishly to help me grow. But and hopefully that we make this available to other people, that they want to come and experience what we do here.
Yeah, well, I encourage it. I encourage it. This is a beautiful place. So I want to say happy anniversary, 25th anniversary to Haverhill Community TV. We love you.